Since the beginning, my message has been to choose happiness. And it was the hardest thing I ever did, to peel myself out of my sheets at 100 pounds, barely able to hold anything in my stomach, and say, I'm going to change my life today. Hi, my name is Kayla Christine. I am an internet personality. I do Instagram, I do Snapchat, I do YouTube and Vine, rest in peace. And I curate playlists on SoundCloud. I am a bud tender at a marijuana dispensary, and I'm a freelance videographer, cinematographer, director. I'm really cool. I fainted at work one day, and my employee took me to the hospital, and she was looking at me like, you're in bad shape. And then the doctor came in and he was like, you're in bad shape. It's time to seriously consider taking some time off work. So I actually was declining rapidly. In 6 months, I went from 143 pounds to 99 pounds. And the sulfasalazine made my hair start to fall out, and I just assumed that's kind of what my life was gonna be, because I couldn't get a hold of it. Crohn's disease is one of two forms of inflammatory bowel disease. There's Crohn's, and then there's ulcerative colitis. The difference is ulcerative colitis only affects the large intestine, and then Crohn's can affect the entire digestive system, mouth to anus. And basically it's just a autoimmune disorder. Inflammation can occur, ulcers develop, and then symptoms from there on because of the inflammation. When I realized I had to stop working for a while, I was so embarrassed and so sad to quit my job. I had this feeling that if I moved home, I was failing. I really thought that that was the end for some reason, so I was very angry, but that quickly changed. Like after 3 weeks of getting home, I knew that I had made the right decision because I immediately could just breathe. When I got diagnosed, my main symptoms was diarrhea. And it got to the point where it was so severe that my sphincter just gave up. Like I just couldn't hold anything anymore. If I had to go, it was happening. And so I just got a crippling fear of leaving the house. It got to the point where I was so depressed that I wanted to die. And I was like, I am done. And I've only had this disease for less than a year. Like, I can't imagine being a mother like this. I can't imagine anyone wanting me. I saw myself as not worthy of being a girlfriend. I mean, I was pathetic, but it's easy to get lost in that when someone just hangs no cure over your head. I also had way too much pride to wear maxi pads or diapers at that time. But when I finally was like, you know, I'd like to go to dinner, I'd like to go to the store, I bought a box of Depends, and it was actually quite empowering. And I remember my mom took a picture of me outside of the Safeway here in town because it was my first time out in so long, and I just was like, I did my hair and braids and was wearing this skirt with like skull leggings to go to the grocery store. But it was a big deal. After I started meandering outside, I let myself kind of think about the things I wanted again. So I was thinking about camping, and I was thinking about traveling, and I stopped letting myself think it couldn't happen. I started saying, no, it totally could, and it will somehow, even if you have to compensate and do it slower, you're gonna do these things again. What started it all was just changing my thought process from negative to positive, and realizing that even though I had Crohn's, it didn't have me. I actually started making videos in high school. I want to say a year after my diagnosis, I got like my first nice iPhone. So I just started dilly-dallying around in my room. Immediately, like that fire reignited, and I was like, oh yeah, I loved doing this, like conveying emotion through music and visuals. Vine came out in 2013, I believe. Basically, it's a place where people could post a video that could be 6 seconds or less, and it would loop infinitely. My first Vine that went viral was an artsy one. The song combination and the bird, people were like reading into it, like, was she the bird? Did she turn into the bird? What is this? What does it mean? And I'm like, it's just 2 clips, like, you know, but that's when I realized like I could make it subjective. I could leave it open to interpretation, and I think that's my favorite thing. I hit my first 1,000 and it seemed like every 4 days I was on to another 1,000. At 13,000, I was like, that's my whole town. I was very hesitant about displaying my illness online at first.
Life update. I am at the hospital right now getting some fluids. I couldn't keep up.
Because even at that point in my life, I didn't want to be known as a sick girl. It was something I kind of hid other than from Facebook friends and family. So I believe the first time I mentioned it was, I was in the ER that day, just feeling really crummy, having some side effects, and I posted a video of me just like, I'm doing okay, everyone.
So I'm just sad because I never wanted it to get to this point. But it's okay. Cheers to life.
And that got this intense response of just like support and love, and I was like, oh, this is nothing to be ashamed of. And the next day at my colonoscopy, I got really bad news, and I just wasn't devastated. It was like this switch, like I felt like I had an army all of a sudden. I wasn't alone anymore. So the only regret I have is that I didn't tell people sooner.
That's okay. Still happy to be alive. Even if I shit my brains out every day. Colonoscopy! This is gonna suck so bad.
I don't understand why the instructions aren't just, have a relaxing day. Take yourself out for some sweet potato fries at Red Robin. That would be a much better colon prep.
I think a lot of people wonder what I'm like offline, and honestly, if you were to hang out with me for a day, you probably wouldn't be able to tell a difference. I mean, when I start snapping me dancing in my room, it's because I was already dancing. Like, it's not something that I wake up and I'm like, I have to dance on Snapchat today, or I have to do this. It's like something's boiling up in me and I have to talk about it, so I have a place to talk about it suddenly. I feel it redundant sometimes because I'm always positive, and a lot of people see that as unobtainable or fake. And I'm like, no, I wake up every day struggling just like you, and I have to turn it around, and all I'm trying to do is show you that you can too. Whatever you pay attention to or whatever you put energy into is what you're gonna feel the most. People might call me crazy for saying this, but I'm glad that I have Crohn's disease now. Because not that I didn't really like who I was beforehand, but I definitely cared more about things that don't matter anymore. I was materialistic. I stressed out about things that I didn't need to stress out about. I put energy into people I didn't need to put energy into. And having this illness really put things into perspective and made me slow down and appreciate the small things. And so it has changed me 100%, completely. And the only thing I've probably maintained is my goofiness. Everything else I kind of left behind because it just doesn't, none of it mattered.
We must let go of the life we have planned so as to accept the one that is waiting for us.
Boom! Heck yeah!